Hey there, Michael Curtis here. Super pumped to partner with SoundPro today as I share some exciting news from our friends at Allen Heath. Just in case you missed it, they recently released their version 2.0 firmware update for the dLive series desk. It's available now at their website, so make sure and download it, throw it in your desk, and get access to these amazing new features. Today I'd like to show you some key highlights which fall into two main buckets for this firmware update: workflow and sound quality. Within workflow, the first brand new feature is called Actions. With a single SoftKey press, not just changing one parameter now, you're now able to change multiple things at once, whether that's processing, inserts, input source, all stacked right in a row, making things a snap when trying to do a lot of things at once. Next, we have the channel library. We now have the ability to save channel name and color, as well as the routing for input channels and contributions for mix channels. Third is scene management. You now have much more control and granularity. You've got manual and auto renumbering, indentation for more organization, spacers for clarity and in between scenes. You also have custom MIDI recall to recall a specific scene if you'd like. And now moving on to sound quality, the main event has to be the new RUFX card. This is a card, a DSP accelerator that goes inside of your mix rack and gives you 8 additional stereo effects sends or inserts. These are new effects entirely. They're added on to what you have. And the great thing is it doesn't eat into your existing effects bus count. So it is purely an addition. You can keep your same workflow that you've had. So if you already have a mix rack, you can get yours retrofitted. You can buy the card and get it put in from the Allen Heath team. Or if you're buying a new one, from here on out, they're going to come stock with it. Looking high level at the new effects, it falls into 4 categories. The first is vocal processing. Within that, you have a vocal tuner, so gentle vocal pitch correction. You have a vocal gritter for more of the hard tune, rap, and R&B effects. And then you have a vocal shifter that actually changes the format and the perceived age and quality of the voice. Then you have 2 new reverbs. The first is a wonderful sounding plate, we'll hear that. And then you have this spaces reverb, which is really creative and adds some nice texture around things. Then we have more distortion and saturation. We always need more of that. And with that, we have an amp sim that has a bass and guitar model, as well as a distortion pedal. And it also has several cabs to play with. And then you have a standalone saturator plugin, which also sounds incredible. Lastly, you have harmonizers. Within that, you have a dual and quad engine. So it's able to have 2 voices or 4 following with it within a predetermined key. And you have a straight up MIDI input harmonizer. So you could actually have someone playing, sending their MIDI input data and map the voice to those new pitches. I wanted to find out for myself just how good these new effects sounded, so I put together my own track where I got my guitar, plugged it straight in DI through a J48 into the desk, recorded a few parts, did the same with my bass, programmed some drums, and put together this track. Check it out. So that was mixed entirely within the dLive, all EQ, compression, the RUFX, some other time-based effects, all within the desk. So excited to unpack that for you and show off what Allen Heath has done with this huge step forward in their version 2. Let's jump right in. Let me give you a lay of the land here, then we'll start jumping into our RackUltra FX, let you hear them, see the new features. I'm working on a dLive C3500 control surface, actually one of my favorite control surfaces in the line, and it's hooked up to the DM0. This is the mix rack and brain of the operation, and it has the RUFX card loaded up into it. Again, if you already have a unit, you can get it retrofitted and put in there, but if you buy a new one from now on, it will come stock with it. So the familiar way to navigate on the side, we would go here to the effects tab, and normally this would bring you right here to your 16 slots that you would have. So within the mix rack, as you're configuring it, you could choose the number of effects slot, and away you go. But now you have this new tab called RackUltra FX, and this brings you to your 8 dedicated stereo sends or inserts that you can use on your mixes. And I just want to reiterate, this is in addition to the buses that you already have. So you're not going to have to eat into that bus structure. And staying high level, I love that they also added pre and post processing on each slot. So here I have the amp and cab distortion on the bass guitar. But before that, I'm able to use some EQ to shape it before it runs into the amp. I'm also compressing a little bit on the dynamic slot. It hits the actual effect, actually running another compressor after the fact, and then I have a post EQ as well. Within this dynamic slot, it doesn't have to be a compressor. It could be a gate, expander, or a ducker as well. So maybe you want to have a ducking effect from a vocal to maybe hide something from a delay trail, something like that. I really love having that flexibility on each and every slot. You can see here that my lead electric, I'm shaping that a little bit differently. And then my rhythm electric, I'm doing some after the fact, very flexible. All right, let's zero in here on our new included effects here that I've got here on the mix. So first up is the amp and cab distortion, and I've got it here on the bass, and I could here on the left-hand side select my amp type. At the top, I have 3 different guitar models, so a Deluxe, a Fender style, a VX30, it's a Vox AC30 style, and then an M-Plex, a Marshall Plexi. And then I've got a standalone distortion pedal, the BDS1, and then at the bottom right here is the bass VT, similar to an Ampeg SVT. And what I really like is that we pop over here to the next guitar amp sim, the UI remains consistent. So it's not trying to change and be fancy depending on the amp. I don't have to think about that. I got the same knobs, just a different algorithm under the hood. So I've got these 3 guitar amps, a distortion pedal, and a bass amp. And on the right-hand side, I've got cabinet sims. So I now have 6 different guitar amp cabs I could choose from. So I got a single 12, 210, another 212, Cell 112, I'm assuming that's a Celestion Vintage 30 112. And then moving down, I've got 3 different amp cab sims. So this is 2 different 810 impulse responses, as well as a 115 down here at the bottom. So here on the bass, I've got the VT in the bass 810, and I'm able to use the 4-band EQ in the middle, as well as the gain to drive it. I also like this thicken knob to, again, it does, at least to my ear, it thickens things up, and I think they really sound great. All right, enough yapping. I'm going to let you hear it. So I'm going to play the full mix, then solo different aspects. Then I'll actually bring the amp in and out. So you hear the amp and then the dry DI signal on each of the instruments. Here we go. All right, that was the bass. Now let's do the rhythm electric guitars. Yeah, that was the Marshall Plexi on the left and then the Vox AC30 on the right. I think probably my favorite guitar algorithm is the Plexi. I'm usually a Fender guy, but I think they really knocked it out of the park here. And then here is the lead electric, which again is the Marshall Plexi up the middle. And we'll get to some of the time-based effects I'm using here in just a second, but this is just the dry guitar. So pretty cool. I really think they sound great. And here's them again within the context of a full mix with their time-based effects as well. All right, so we're going to move from left to right here. We're going to skip over our vocal gritter and our harmonizer. We'll come back to that. I want to move on to the plate. So this is a wonderful plate algorithm that they got going here. There's a whole lot of parameters that you can really fiddle with. I found the echo control was cool to be able to really dial that in for this specific setup. I really liked being able also to increase the width and give some space around it. And I've got this inserted across the drum stem right here. So let's highlight what it looks like. I'll solo adjust the drums, and then I'll bring in the plate with it as well. So I think it just makes it sound bigger, more epic. Again, nothing super drastic, but I think great mixers are doing a whole lot of little things really right, and they all add up to a really great effect. So I think this plate sounds wonderful. And moving on to the new Spaces Reverb Designer. This is more for, in my brain, kind of your quirky, cool kind of delay effects. And I've actually been really interested lately in very short reverbs to kind of create this impact space around something. So I tried that here, and I did it on the lead electric. So if I PFL my lead, and then I'll also bring in the verb around it. I think it just helps give it some space around it. I mean, it'll literally call it spaces here, but it makes it sounds like it's mic'd up in a room. I was actually thumbing through some of the presets here, and I found one that was actually called room mic, and that sounded cool. But I actually went this small wide hall and really like the texture that it added. And I also want to remind you that even though these 8 new RUFX slots are really cool, don't sleep on the stuff that's actually included right here, because what I actually added on the guitar that really helped make it was this bucket brigade delay. So right here, the guy right over here on the left added some cool slap. So again, just kind of getting into some shorter time, some slap and shorter verbs. So it's just been something fun for me as of late. So let me hear that. I'll bring in the verb, then also the bucket brigade. So really fun here. And then I also included in here the echo that's here on the rhythm electrics. I'll show you that. So I had the lead electric with a wide slap delay, but I kind of inverted. It had panned out guitars and had their return come down the middle, which is so just kind of creating some extra depth and texture. And the last one I'm going to cover is actually a chorus on the bass guitar. So if I go over here to the chorus, I'll solo it, and it just added some texture and width around the bass. So yeah, a lot of fun. So I think there's a lot of great stuff built in here into the desk, and having those 8 additional effects, very, very cool. All right, now you're thinking, okay, wait a minute, Michael, you're just going to get biased here and skip over the vocal stuff. Okay, so this is something I've said I'll never do. It's me singing on the internet. I'm firmly an instrumentalist here, but here we go. So we've got the vocal gritter, and this is more of kind of the hard-tuned, super rapper guy kind of effects. And then we have the harmonizer. So this takes your voice, tracks it, and this actually keeps it within a given key and then keeps these intervals above it. So a third above, and depending on the note you are within the scale, that'll be a major or minor third. You get an octave above, perfect fifth below, and then a perfect fifth above. You can mix it, pan it around. It's really cool. So first, I'm going to bypass this guy, and we're going to just hear the vocal gritter, but I got both of them on my voice right here. So here am I on the key of D, Mr. Rapper Guy, Mr. Rapper Guy. So that's fun. And now I'm going to add in the harmonizer. Here we go. Crazy stuff. Pretty fun. So this, think of that Imogen Heap, where are we kind of thing. That is what's happening. So kind of fun to add some texture. I'm going to turn this off now before I go crazy. And here we are. So just know that's available to you. Again, I tested the vocal tuner out as well, and it works very nicely. So just some fun, creative effects that you can use on vocals, help give them some texture, some vibe. Definitely have fun with it. All right, now that we've had fun with our effects, let's get practical with some workflow tips. And the first I want to cover in the version 2.0 update is if I go to Surface, Control, and I go to Actions. So all of you Stream Deck nerds out there being able to press a button and, do your taxes, this is now all built into the desk. Very, very cool. So with Actions, I can now map an action to a SoftKey, which I've done over here. So I just go down here, and when I was bypassing all the effects earlier and bringing in my voice, that's what I was doing. So I got on SoftKey 17, I was bringing in the action called Time Effects, and then in SoftKey 18, that's no amp. And then SoftKey 19 is bypass vocal effects. So let me show you what I mean here. So if I go to the no amp one, I selected it on the right-hand side. Now if I go to edit, I can choose from the left-hand side what I want to do. So I can turn on and off mutes on specific channels, on mute groups. I can bring out strips onto the layer here. I can assign inputs. There's a whole lot of control that's here. I got to do things at the same time. So this one was simple. That had it on toggle mode, so it went back and forth. And then all it did was go to processing, and I could change insert A to bring it in and out. And insert A is where I had these amp sims loaded up on all 4 of those channels. And I brought those in and out. So if we go to cancel, that was it. And then on time effects, when I was auditioning the different reverbs and delays that I was putting on here, I also had that map so I could bring them in and out. So I could hear my mix dry as a bone, and then with the effects added in. So check that out. So subtle, but it's a way as you're building a mix to very easily audition what's going on, versus I would have to bring up all my effects returns right here, go mute, 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 bring them in. I could assign them to a mute group. I'm eating that up, and I'd rather use it for show. Anyway, very flexible. So let's see what we would do if we needed to stack multiple actions. So I can go here to, I made one called Go Band, and I stacked one where I'm sending a custom MIDI command. I'm actually changing the input level of the fader that would have the intro music coming in. Then I have mutes that are assigned to different channels for the MC microphones that would turn off to make sure they aren't there when they announce the band. So all with one button press, I can say, hey, here is the star of the show. Again, I can stack a huge number of cues all right in a row and make that happen. I also do a lot of corporate gigs, so I thought what might be useful for that. So I've actually had it to where I had a wireless unit that was sending signal over Dante into the desk, but there was a problem with the network switch that was connecting that wireless unit to the desk. So the rest of the system stayed up, but I lost the Dante stream from that device. It wasn't Dante's fault, it was the network switch's fault. But I thought, well, I have concurrent audio passing out of the analog out of those specific RF units. So what if I could patch that into some local I/O or even the other I/O unit on stage? And so I could switch over to that source. So on any given input on the dLive series desk, I have different input sources. So A, B, C, and D. So my A could be my Dante input, but let's say if that does happen again, I have it now to where I've selected inputs 25 to 32. And when I hit that soft key, they would all switch over to the source B input, which is really cool. I can very quickly tell all of these channels to fail over, not have to do it manually on each one, and away we go. I would, of course, sync the match gain structure, etc., but nice to have if that ends up happening again with my RF unit and the Dante network. So actions, really cool added functionality. You can very easily map them to soft keys. The sky's the limit and what you can stitch together and make sure you have the perfect workflow to help you out and simplify things on your shows. Moving on here to channel strip upgrades. I really like what they did here as well. So if I select any channel and go to Overview right here, and then go to Library, I now have the Library tab, and I can now save a lot more parameters and recall them. So I've saved 4 of them here: bass, drums, lead electric, rhythm electric. And with bass, if I recall it, it is going to be able to take into account all this processing: the stereo width, preamp model, filters, gate, EQ, compressor, delay, name and color. So that's new. So to be able to pull up the name and color, the direct out level, as well as the routing. So if it's passing to any specific mixes, if is it going to a matrix or just to the stereo bus, it's going to be able to remember all that. And the same is true if I go to an aux. So if I have this aux right here, I go to Overview, I hit Library. It is also going to be able to maintain routing. So any sources that were going to it. So let's say you have maybe a couple of different guitar players that are switching out on tour. In rehearsals, you had their mixes dialed in. And you don't want to build a separate show file for each of them and not eat up an extra bus to have to patch it. You could just save this, so where you can save their particular in-ear mixes to a specific aux, then just recall it when you need to. Very, very cool. All right, last thing here on workflow is they added more control and granularity with scenes. So here on Scene Manager, if we go over to Cue List Editor, this is really where they beef things up. So I can look at all my scenes here on the right, then easily drag them in. I got the first 4 tracks here listed of an album that I love, and they're here right in order. So I can easily take them, move them in and out, remove, okay. And I now can indent as well. So if I need to nest them within something, I can renumber them, I can auto-number them. So a lot of the metadata-driven busy work that you used to have to do manually is now taken care of within here. So I think a very good value add for you theater folks when you live and die by your scene management. So being able to have this in a much more fluid fashion is very cool. I also like that they introduced a spacer. So I can go here and after a particular cue, if I want to move next, just to have it at the ready and help kind of make this list easier to digest. Really enjoy that. They have also added custom MIDI recalls. So that means we can tie MIDI to a specific scene and bring it to the surface, which is very cool. So this is a kind of a one-to-one correlation with what's happening with any given MIDI trigger to talk to your scenes if you need to go somewhere quickly and not have to advance somewhere to get there. 2 more little bonus things that we did not quite get to is that you can now do pinch to move the Q factor on any given EQ, which is very cool. And now with ganging, we can now gang what's happening within the dyne 8s, which is very cool. So if you have it on a stereo source, you can have them match and move together. Very cool. All right, thank you so much for hanging out with me today as we unpack this huge update from Allen Heath for the dLive series desks. I love that they're continuing to invest in this platform and make it better and better. If you can let me know, what was your favorite update you have? Was it something more workflow oriented, or are you really excited about a particular new effect that you want to try out? If you have any questions about what you saw or about the desk or update in general, please make sure and reach out to your SoundPro account manager. My name is Michael Curtis. Thank you so much. I'll catch you next time.